Well, good afternoon. For those of you that don't know me, which is almost everybody, my name is Brad Reddersen, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Climate Survival Solutions India, which is headquartered in Siliguri, West Bengal. I'm also the founder of something known as Sustainable Sikkim that some of you may know of, and Sustainable Sikkim is part of Climate Survival Solutions India now, which we formed as a corporation just under a year ago in July of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. So it was a great time to start a company. Anyway, it's with a great honor that I want to welcome all of you to our web panel discussion on pharmaceutical waste in Sikkim rivers, should we be worried? And that we are bringing this to you in partnership with Blooming Sikkim, a youth activist organization you should all get to know a lot better. For no other reason that they're going to change the world, and I would say pay attention. I've been so impressed since I got to meet them for the first time almost 2 years ago. Well, as an introduction here, a starting point for me is just to recognize that India is one of the most blessed places on the planet. It has a diversity of cultures and beliefs. It has lush forests. It has open lands and majestic mountains, biodiversity that brings together the beauty of the Bengal tiger, the Indian elephant, and the leopard. Birds as beautiful as the Himalayan quail, for some of you that know what that looks like. An unusual thing called Mrs. Gould's sunbird, what I have actually seen, that's right up in northeastern India where we are. It's in gold, crimson, and lavender. And there's even the crimson horned pheasant that's in the Himalayan foothills just north of us. And threaded throughout all these forests and mountains are rivers which have names that are known throughout the world, which is not true of everywhere else. The Ganga, the Indus, the Yamuna, the Brahmaputra, and I appreciate your patience if I pronounce them badly. And here in Sikkim, we have the Tista River as the dominant natural waterway that weaves its way through the varied lands of this state. These rivers all provide us with drinking water, cleanse us, and provide us food in the form of fish and other life which thrives within and along the banks nearby. They provide the very basis of life and a link to the spiritual around us. Today's panel discussion on the pharmaceutical manufacturing companies and their impact on Sikkim's river is intended to honor what those rivers mean to us all, and to understand that we need to keep our rivers alive and well, and also to deal with some of the things that we have to handle in terms of human growth and the things that keep us employed, have jobs, and other things. Our hope in gathering today is to help us navigate the challenging future we have ahead of us as we work to balance the needs of all living things and those of the amazing natural world we live within. We thank you for joining us. So I will turn us over to Jiwan Rai, who is a local journalist and observer of the human condition, and who has graciously agreed to support us with an introduction to the rest of the group. He does write for the Sikkim Times and Sikkim Express, and highly recommend reading some of his materials. Jiwan, I will turn it over to you.
For joining, and I once again would like to extend warm welcome on behalf of the Blooming Sikkim, who is organizing this web panel in association with the Climate Survival Solutions India. And we are here to participate in a web panel on pharmaceutical Western Sikkim River, should we be worried? And I was wondering how to open this web, and then I saw an old Cree Native American saying which Brad had posted on our group, a WhatsApp group. And I thought there would be no better way to start this web panel than by reading this. I'll just take 5 seconds to read this. Only after the last tree has been cut down, only after the last river has been poisoned, only after the last fish has been caught, only then will you find that money cannot be eaten. And this is exactly why a web panel like this is so very important. To participate in the panel tonight, this afternoon, we have a panel of 5 gentlemen. I'll quickly introduce them to you in alphabetical order. First is Dr. Bharat Kumar Pra, a young scientist from Sikkim. He's a scientific associate in Sikkim Biodiversity Board. He's also a community leader in Friends for Future International Germany. He's also a member in IUCN, World Commission on Protected Areas. We have Dr. D.R. Dahal, Dilli Ram Dahal. He is an independent researcher, and his researches have been on the Sikkim and Darjeeling Hills. His research interests include glaciers, climate change and human health, wetlands, disaster, springs, remote sensing, geographical information system, and its applications. We have Dr. GHANASHYAM Sharma. He is the program manager and head the Mountain Institute. He has done his postdoc from the UN University in Tokyo, Japan. We have Mr. Passang Gyali Sherpa, socio-political activist, coordinator of IM 371F campaign, is General Secretary of Global Sherpa Association, and is one of the most vocal politicians in the state for sure, and one of the much needed voices in the state. We have Mr. Ranjan Rai. He is the Executive Environmental Engineer. He's done his BTech in Chemical Engineering and MTech in Environmental Engineering. He has the total work experience of 13 years in State Pollution Control Board, Sikkim. And he is one of the most important persons tonight because he will be giving us the government's perspective to the whole issue that we'll be talking about. So thank you so much for your gracious consent to be part of this panel. Okay, Mr. Passang Sherpa, if you can hear me,
yes.
My question to you is, how much of a close watch do you keep on the pharmaceutical companies' operations in terms of effluent treatment? As a very active politician, as an activist, do you really keep your watch on how they operate, and do you have data to suggest that they're not doing well or they're doing well? How do you answer this question?
Thank you for inviting me to this crucial meeting, and directly going to the question. Yes, we do have a very close watch on the functioning of pharmaceutical companies. However, it is not possible for to visit every pharmaceutical companies and do the investigation. However, through various reports and through various journals, we have been through different media reports, we are aware that the effluents or the chemical waste from the pharmaceuticals are being dumped in the various rivers of Sikkim. And recently I was going through suggestion made by National Green Tribunal that they have identified 4 different rivers where the pH level of water is really going down. It's below the standard for drinking or for any purpose for that matter. So it is alarming, and government of Sikkim were given 6 months time to come up with a revival strategy and to do their job. But unfortunately, as of now, we haven't seen any report coming in, and we are closely monitoring the situation even with the National Green Tribunal and even with the government of Sikkim. And
right.
If you have a time, I would like to quite quickly add few points here. See, when we talk about today, the main discussion, there are various components, which is dangerous for our river ecosystem. But since today's discussion is around the pharmaceutical waste and rivers,
Yeah.
so I would like to point out that the problem with our rivers are like there is no mechanism to control, or there is no law as such in the state of Sikkim to control this pollution. And even the pollution control boards and all the government agencies, they try to, but since they do not have rules and regulation for that. Say for
Okay,
example,
Okay, okay, Mr. Sherpa, we have a representative from Pollution Control Board of Sikkim, Mr. Ranjan Rai. So we will just throw your question at him and see what he has to say about it.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So, Mr. Ranjan Rai, would you like to address the concern raised by Mr. Passang Sherpa?
At first, thank you for inviting me to this program. In fact, much needed program. There are lots of misconception around operation of pharma units, establishment, and pollution of the river. Just to answer a query, the question is quite valid. In fact, when we have a pristine river condition and when we set up industry nearby, and people generally think that all effluent will eventually reach the river, and in the process, the river gets contaminated or polluted. So the thing is, there's a process for setting up any industry. There's a lot of regulatory mechanism is in place. Just for information, if you look at the legislative framework, there are environmental provisions and there are statutory provisions which prevent such kind of issues, which deals with such kind of issue. For your information, already in India we have Water Prevention and Control Pollution Act 1974. Likewise, to address air pollution, central government enacted Air Prevention and Control Pollution Act 1981, and thereafter in 1986, Environment Protection Act 1986 was enacted. So EPA Act is also known as Umbrella Act. So these are the main legislative framework which deals with any environmental issues. So coming back to your point, so whenever industry is set up, they have to obtain various clearances or permission, statutory permissions. You might have heard about this environmental clearance. So whenever industry is set up, the main regulatory body at the central level is Central Pollution Control Board under Ministry of Environment and Forest. Likewise, under state, it is State Pollution Control Board. SPCB is both a regulatory as well as a advisory body. And this, while setting up an industry, all industry, they require to obtain prior permission. We call consent to establish and consent to operate under Section 25 of the Water Prevention Control Act and Section 21 of the Air Act. So whenever they submit an application, we go in detail about the pollution control measures, their technologies, process. Everything is scrutinized, vetted, and then only.
Mr. Rai. Yeah, that is okay. That part no one is doubting. What Mr. Passang is saying is post-establishment, when the industry is already allowed, how much of the how much does your law have teeth to control their operations post-establishment? Yeah, when you construct in the industry, you have to get all these permissions. Okay, good.
No, I'm coming to your question.
Yeah.
Let me complete my point. The thing is, industry is not allowed to set up unless they have a proper pollution control measures in place. Starting with the technology they adopt. Secondly, what kind of technology and how and while operating these technologies and effluent treatment plant, we say we live by various conditions and they have to fulfill those conditions. This question needs a little bit context. To set the context right, the thing is, in Sikkim, we don't have API industry or bulk drug industry, because they are the actual pharmaceutical industries where the active ingredients are produced, which is a highly polluting industry. It falls under red category industry. So in Sikkim, so far, we have not permitted any kind of highly polluting industries, that including this bulk drug industry. So what we have in Sikkim is only this formulation units, and it comes under orange category. Is slightly less polluting because they don't produce the active ingredient. What they do is whatever active ingredients there, they bring it here, they blend it, mix it, they prepare, compress it and make capsules or fill it in the capsule. They prepare tablets. So these are the process. So they don't have a they don't deal in actually producing the pharmaceutical products. So what they do is only the limited activities is there within the formulation units. Even then, though it's slightly less polluting, we have various checks and balances to see, to monitor how they are operating their industry. Starting with, you see, they have to operate their effluent treatment plant. By the way, in Sikkim, all industries, they have their own captive treatment facility. We call it effluent treatment plant, and it's a 3-stage process they have, elaborate. Primary, secondary, and tertiary. And in fact, we have gone to the extent that we have a few industries, they have also adopted, apart from this requirement, they have also gone for state-of-the-art technologies. They are, you might have heard the concept of zero liquid discharge. So they have adopted that technology as well in Sikkim. Even though by regulatory provision, they are not required, but we have the provision to make it more stringent. So in the case of Sikkim, we have made it so stringent that by law, they can discharge. All industries can discharge if they, provided they meet the standard. But in case of Sikkim, what we have done is...
we'll come back to you. We've got so many questions to ask. And so you are basically saying that our industries are not highly polluting, that this formulation process, and we are relatively doing better. And then given that we've got almost 48 companies operating, and
no, actually,
still good. So I think we
at one time we have 54 industries. Now we have come down to 48.
48. So I have a question for Dr. Dahal. So Dr. Dahal says 7 of those have been closed, have been asked to close down because they breached certain laws. Could you tell us, Dr. Dahal, why were those companies shut down? What were the actual reasons?
One of the unit was shut down due to the violation of Central Pollution Control Board norms in 2010 or 12. And so that unit was Pristine Life Sciences of Sikkim, and the other units were closed by the companies themselves only, not due to the violation of the regulation norms of CPCB and the SPCB, sir.
Right. And then you also say that the 16% of the households dump their untreated waste into the water. How serious is that? And what step has been taken by the government?
Question, please.
So you want me to repeat the question?
Under the yes, sir. Okay, yes. Recently, under the direction of Honorable National Green Tribunal, Government of India. Yes, sir. Government of Sikkim has recently constituted the River Rejuvenation Committee to restore the ecological health of the river. So what are the River Rejuvenation Committee has I don't know in real, sir. In reality, what are the mandate of RRC and what are the objectives and what are the achievements that are not available in the answer.
If I can ask Mr. Bharat, and I would like to request the gentleman to keep your responses as brief as possible. Dr. Bharat Sharma, you as a part of the state scientific community, do you have you ever tried to contact the government, conveying your concern as a scientist or your group's concern in relation to the river ecology?
Thank you very much. Yes, we had multiple, not with the government, but we had multiple meetings with different agencies in Sikkim who are working in Sikkim, and have already convey to the government that we need river water management policies, river management policies. And now through my the campaign which I'm running, Restore River Ecosystem, I just wanted to convey the government that we need to ban the quarry at least for next 5 years, so that it will get rejuvenated, so that we'll have our biodiversity, we'll have everything in place. Then after 5 years, then can think on so that is
Right.
that is what I'm trying to convey to the government.
Right. Thanks. Thank you. Banning query is a mega issue. I don't know government will ever listen to you, but our best wishes are with you, and these are really genuine concerns. So,
Jiwan sir,
sorry.
shall I continue?
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jiwan sir. So what are the key
Yes.
issues that are linked up with the pharmaceuticals and the other industries of Sikkim? It is not only the pharmaceuticals that are polluting our rivers. There are other industries that are linked up with the pollution of our rivers, our land, and the water. Right.
Yeah.
The east and the south district of Sikkim has become the industrial hub recently due to pro-industrial policy opted by the government of Sikkim. The pro-industrial policy includes the Northeast Industrial Investment Promotion Policy and North of Sikkim. This policies gives lots of incentives to these industries. They give tax holidays and all to this industry. So this is the reason why Sikkim has become one of the pharmaceutical hub in India after Himachal Pradesh. Right. Currently, there are 56 pharmaceutical manufacturing and formulation plants along the river belts of East and tributaries, and there are high density of pharmaceutical units in east and south district of Sikkim. There are 34 pharmaceutical units in east and 22 pharmaceutical units of Sikkim. However, there is a very high density of pharmaceutical units of Rorathang, Kumrek, Ramphu, Maming, Ranipur area. Apart from these, the right, as the emission rate of the pharmaceutical various, and they put under the orange category by the State Pollution Control Board itself, right? And what are the major industries that pollute our land, river, and water in the recent times? This includes our pharmaceutical units. Pharmaceutical units, by the definition, what the SPCB says that there are no large-scale pharmaceutical industries in Sikkim. There are pharmaceutical formulation and manufacturing plants do exist in our state. And second one is the hydropower projects. We have more than 28 hydropower projects. Some of them are still operating, and some of them have been scrapped by the government itself. And third one is the breweries and the distilleries, manufacturing and the packaging industries, stone courses, and the bottling plants along the river belts of Tista and its tributaries. This is the first part of my presentation, right? The second part of my presentation is about the polluted stretches of Tista and its tributaries. In 2014, the Central Pollution Control Board, Government of India, has identified the polluted river stretches in Sikkim. The polluted river stretches in Sikkim include the Dikchu River between Napong to Dikchu, Manekhola between Adampul to Burtuk, Rangit River between the NSPC Dam to the confluence of Tista and Rangit at Chitre, right? And fourth one is the Ranikhola between Gyantok to Ranipul and between Namli to Singtam. And fifth one is the Tista River between the long stretch that exists between Chungthang and the Malli in South District of Sikkim. The polluted stretch of the river, the total length of the polluted stretch of the river in Sikkim state itself is 110 kilometers. This is an alarming situation for us, actually. Well,
Okay.
the findings of the State Pollution Control Board also says that the biological oxygen demand and the fecal coliform count in this river is within the permissible limit. The BOD is below 5 milligram per liter, and the fecal coliform count is less than 500 mpn per liter, right? And third part of my presentation is the visible impacts. What are the impacts of pharmaceuticals and other industries on our land, on our water, and our environment? The major cause of pollution of the river is the degradation of the catchment due to developmental activities, disposal of industrial effluents during the flooding of the rivers by the pharmaceutical units and other industries. As per the report of Center for Science and Environment 2020, about 16.8% population of Sikkim dispose untreated wastewater, which pollutes our rivers and the ponds. Secondly, these industries have led to land use transformation in the state. Our virgin, our pristine agricultural land has been converted into industrial lands. There are many live examples of our agricultural land being converted into industrial land at Saramsa, at Samardung Besi, at Rodathang, at Balutar, where we can find out huge industrial building. And no, sir, still points are there. As for the report of Science and Environment 2020, Sikkim has also registered a reduction in the average size of the land holdings due to conversion of our agricultural land, our cultivable land, and the forest land into these industrial hubs. And next one is I talk about the monitoring of air quality by State Pollution Control Board under the direction of the National Green Tribunal. They confirmed that the ambient air quality within the pharmaceutical is within the prescribed limit. If you see the website and the report of the SPCB, everything is okay. There is no problem at all. But in 2015, SPCB itself has reported that the particulate matter PM suddenly disappeared, and it is very good. As far as the industrial waste is concerned, the Sikkim state has generated more than 3,000 metric tons of industrial waste in the last 3 years, between 2016 to 2019. Data is report, Sikkim state has generated 56 million of industrial waste annually. So the e-flow of the river, right, and the declining environmental flow of the major rivers. Major rivers in the lean months due to overuse and diversion of water for the developmental purpose. And the National Geography in 2017 itself has identified the river tiers running dry due to overuse of water in the mountains and the plains. Now, finally, after the order of the Honorable National Green Tribunal, River Rejuvenation Committee has been constituted by SPSC, Government of Sikkim, for the ecological restoration of our rivers. So the work has already been started, and so we have to wait for some time to know the result. What is the impact of the River Rejuvenation Committee on the rivers? Secondly, to comply with the Solid Management Rules 2016, State Level Committee has also been formed by the Government Sikkim for the proper disposal of solid waste. And we have to manage the effluent and the leakage from the sewage pipelines of the urban local bodies. That needs to be checked and evaluated, as well as to be monitored by the concerned authority. Similarly, there are so many sand mining and quarrying activities taking place on our river beds. So we have to check the oil leakage from the trucks, crusher plants, and excavators being used in the mining of sand and stone chips. That needs to be evaluated, and a proper study is required to find out the result, right? And the next important point is the number of air and water quality monitoring stations should be increased, as there are only 14 water quality monitoring stations and only 8 air quality monitoring stations in Sikkim. This needs to be increased to improve the data quality of the water, of the data quality of the rivers, data quality, air quality data of our industrial units. And there is also a need of long-term discourse on the impacts of these industries on our land, water, and air in the long term. With this, I would like to conclude. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Thank you. So now let's only focus our attention on pharmaceutical company operations and the impacts on the river ecology. Okay. So yes, there are other concerns, and we will have to deal with them later. So thank you, Dr. Dahal. Now I would like Mr. Passang and Ranjan to have a little debate on one question. Why? So my first question is to Dr. Passang. Why do you think we should be worried about pharmaceutical companies operating in the riverbanks? And then and Mr. Ranjan will tell us why we shouldn't worry. And then I would like you to be very brief to what you are going to say, about what you're going to say. So, Passang, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the major concern is that, as Mr. Ranjan was pointing about the various, act of the central government to monitor various pollution control checks and balances. But at the same time, what we see is, like, as we were listening from Dr. Dahal, that the State Pollution Control Board always is trying to show that everything is fine and okay, right? But when we talk about pharmaceutical and the periphery, the entire river ecology, the National Green Tribunal only have given direction to the, I think, SPCV and the government of Sikkim about, rejuvenating the rivers. So, Sikkim has a provision. I won't get into the details of it, but we have the provisions to have our own water management policy of our state. Where Sikkim is lacking, there is no only for the for the consumers, that public health engineering department is there. But apart from that, the river management policy seems to be nil in Sikkim of our own. And all the rejuvenating activities, or all these river, to make our ecology better, they're just doing the cosmetic thing, because our department is involved, our government agencies are involved. They always go with the notion of the government and to how to save their government. Rather, why not SPCB is engaging the civil society, the school students, the youngsters, like what Blooming Sikkim is doing, a very creative endeavor. So do State Pollution Control Board has anything in mind where they would like to come up with a water management policy of our own in Sikkim? And at the same time, what are the steps you are going to take to engage the maximum civil society to create awareness and be really active in the field of, like, rejuvenating river ecology? Thank you.
Great points. Great points. So let's hear from Mr. Ranjan Rai.
Thank you very much. You see, you should give me some time to explain, because what I till now what I've seen is, people have their views, but most of them they have certain level of misconception, which needs to be cleared. Number one. Number two, because of maybe they are not able to obtain information regarding this, they have certain doubts. That is okay, but thing is, as you have posed the question to me, why we shouldn't be worried.
Yeah.
To me, yeah. No, I can't say we shouldn't be. We should be worried at all time, because environment. We all are stakeholder. Every citizen of India is a stakeholder in case of environment. So it's our owner's responsibility for each and every citizen to make sure that our surrounding, our environment is protected at all cost. Having said that, you see. Please give me some time to elaborate upon all these issues one by one, because it's very, it needs a lot of illustration and clarification. Number one, as a Pollution Control Board, what we are doing, actually, it has to be communicated to all the people, because that's why they are unable to understand what is happening in our state. The thing is, initially, one of the panelists said that we don't have, there's no mechanism to control, there's no law in the state, and it doesn't have teeth, number one. Number two, one of the panelists was saying that waste are being dumped, effluents are being dumped in the river. So that is a valid question. We all have apprehension that somebody may be discharging illegally, right? So but the thing is, as a regulatory body, what we are doing is, through your forum, I would like to apprise all my distinguished panelists that, we have put in place a mechanism to check whether the effluents are being discharged or not. Number one, what we have done is, CPCB has devised a mechanism they call real-time online monitoring system, whereby they have identified 17 numbers of highly polluting industries which requires to install the system, and real-time data has to be transmitted to CCB and the SPCB. 70 categories falls under red category industries. Even though all red categories are not supposed to have the system, only 17 categories requires to set up the system. But in case of our state, this formulation unit, they don't require this system, but we went one step ahead, and we have made it so stringent that even by law they are not supposed to have it. All industries, they mandatorily require to install this online real-time monitoring system, and they have to transmit the data from their ETP directly to our server, and we can 24 hours 7 we can check this, the operation of the ETP function.